Hello, friends. Welcome to this week's episode of Hanging Out with David Pasqualone and Friends. Today we have our great friend, Mike Lindell. Mike, how are you today?
Doing great. It keeps getting better and better every day.
Amen. Amen. Last time we spoke, the listeners and we heard about your run for governor. We talked about the plan to move factories for My Pillow. We talked about exclusive specials and promotions and generally what's going on in not just your world, but in our country. So today, to catch up, where would you like to start today?
Why don't we start on the what's going on in the country? How important this SAVE Act is, the Save America Act. Boy, people call it the SAVE Act. The president doesn't like that. He goes, "It's called the Save America Act." Everybody, I can't stress how important this is. The president and I, we've been in lockstep for the last 5 years at least with these election platforms to get to what we ultimately want: paper ballots, hand counted, same day voting, voter ID, precinct level, all these things. And the SAVE Act is so huge because, as we know, the problems we have with the illegals, the dirty voter rolls, it's just one segment of the election fraud that's went on in our country, which is more than any other country in history, I believe, because we have the worst election platforms in history. Remember, 132 countries have banned electronic voting machines. Over 100 countries have banned early voting and mail-in voting, another big problem we have here. Incidentally, the early voting, everybody, when you talk about that, my home state here, Minnesota, we set the bar. I mean, we were the ones, we were doing this corrupt early voting 45 days early before any other state. We were the earliest in the country. And then along came the virus. And when the virus thing came in, all of these states put in early voting illegally into their states. When I say illegally, all the things they did that governors did and secretary of states, just like in Michigan, poured out 6,000 ballots all over, or 6 million ballots all over the state, just sent them out there, mailed them out to register and all these things. These things that were put in, the legislature puts those in. They vote on it. You can't just put these in illegally, which the governors and secretary of state did. Now, the only attorney general in the United States that fought that back then was Ken Paxton of Texas. And he put 12 cases up. He thought, and this was the spring of 2020, everybody, and he won every one of them. And so Texas didn't get polluted like the other states did with all these illegal regulations put in. And but incidentally, only 13 states have reverted back to where it was prior to the 2020 election. The point I'm saying is that we're still in this big fight for as they were coming up on the most important election going forward in history right now. It's absolutely the most important midterms in history. This can't be the one when a president's in power, it goes back the other way, Democrat, Republican. No, we're beyond that. We're so beyond that. This is uniparty talk. We have to win. This is evil good talk, but we have to win these midterms. And the Save America Act, I got to say it right, is so important, everybody. If you go to lindelltv.com too, by the way, our reporters, just Senator Ron Johnson, he just put out a little clip calling out Lindell TV, saying our reporters did something very good. They went into the heart of DC and questioned Democrats, people all over DC. Hey, do you have a problem with checking voter ID in the election? They said, we want that, absolutely. So with this Save America Act, to get voter ID and to prove you're a legal citizen, these two things on there, amongst other things that are on there, it's 79% of all Democrats. It's hit as high as 80, and like 90% of Republicans. So you have almost 85% of this country, we the people, we want this. So this is where we're at. If you guys know anybody that's a senator, you can reach out to your senators and say, hey, we want this is so important. We all got to get involved in. So that's the biggest thing going on. And our president will tell you, if you've heard him say, I won't pass another bill until this passes. And he's also said, anybody goes against it, I will never have their back ever. This is how important this is. Everything comes around our elections. Everything. So if you have selections rather than elections, it doesn't matter what's going on out there. It's all going to be in vain, everybody. And so that's the first thing I wanted to bring up today. And we happen to catch you on this is one of the most important weeks that I can think of, because it's finally made it to where they're going to at least talk about it. I've heard whether they do a talking filibuster, whether they do other things. I think let's see what the temperature is, what that Senator Thune's doing, and which everybody has a problem that he delayed, and now he's finally doing something. But we'll see what happens. But we all need to pray. This is so important. Pray that this passes and gets done. That would be a big step in these primaries, and the primaries, and there are these midterms coming up. Because now, are we going to have all the machines gone by then? Probably not. With God, all things are possible, but we need enough stuff in place where we can either win, or there's enough deviations that show up where the public demands open up those machines. Let's look at these elections. We're not going to take it anymore. David, in Texas, this just came out this week. In Texas, all of this fraud came out where where they watch votes disappear for both Democrats and Republicans, everybody. I think it was 60,000 votes disappeared in real time. Numbers don't go in reverse. And same way with Democrat, there was like 10,000 votes disappeared. Remember, the uniparty deep state doesn't care if you're Democrat or Republican. It's who they want in this uniparty, everybody. And I was just on a show, and I want to real quick mention this. The with the when these guys were on there, they were on there in Texas. They're going, these numbers just went reverse. And obviously, it's impossible. Let me tell you what that is. What we have under the Freedom of Information Act in our country, we can get what's called cast vote records. And when I first brought that to light in the summer of 22, and the government has to hold these for 22 months on the federal level. So that's the one thing we can get out of these voting machines, is those records. Now, what the cast vote record is the order the votes come in, David. So they come in, and when they come in, let's say you missed a football game, and you're going to go back and see the play-by-play and the score-by-score in order till the game ends, right? And you say, first quarter it's 7-7, second quarter it's 14-14, third quarter comes along and it's 21-3. Numbers don't go in reverse. It's impossible. The first thing you would do is go, there's something wrong here. It's a computer error. Whatever you are looking at, it's computer. There's a computer manipulation. It wouldn't be physical, because it's in a computer. In that world of computer, it went in reverse. The game didn't play in reverse. The real life score, it didn't go in reverse. So this is impossible. We need to look into the computers, whatever you'd be looking at. Now, in the 2020 election, everybody, my team got 1/3 of the United counties in the United States. That's over 1,000 counties we got the cast vote records from. Are you ready, everybody? Every single one of them was computer manipulated. Doesn't say that they flipped, but the numbers did go in reverse. So whatever their outcome was that they wanted to happen, this is what was going on with these cast vote records. There's no in between. Now, also here comes the 2022 election. We also reached out, my teams did, across the country, and we were able to only get 1/4 of the counties, because a lot of these states and counties go, you don't get to have the cast vote records. It's our right to have the cast vote records. In fact, my home state of Minnesota said, we don't know what they are, but if we find out, you can't have them. Okay, this is good.
That sounds like Tim Walz and his crew.
Yeah. So here, everybody, and of those cast vote records, we did find one state at that time that did not have computer manipulation, and it was the Ron DeSantis race in Florida in 2022. Now, there was no computer manipulation. So one of the good things that came out of that was, wow, we finally found something without going back in time before the machines. Of course, there was no computer manipulation, but we finally found it. Now, what would life be in the United States without these voting machines? Because we had an example now, and we extrapolated the numbers across the United States. We're like 65 to 66% red. So places you think are blue might be purple, purple might be red, and red is bright red. So this is where we're at with these cast vote records, and with these elections coming up. And the SAVE Act is one of the most important things you got. Our election platforms are so broad. Obama deemed them critical infrastructure. So there's so many things our president's looking into. But one of the things you all got to be aware of out there is all the information that's coming out. And they're still trying to block it, David. Down in Georgia, when all that came out down there, they're fighting that in court. Why? Why can't we see the fraud? Let us look at it. Come on. It's 2020's gone. You know why? Because they don't want their platform that's built to steal the uniparty. They don't want that gone. If they lose that, remember, they tried to take the United States without firing a shot, just like they did Venezuela back in the early 2000s and all of South America. Every single country was taken by the machines in South America, by the voting machines, except now we do have in 2022, Argentina. So we want these voting machines gone. One judge, it's gone. Argentina freed itself. So there's such great hope going on when it comes to our election platforms.
Yeah, and for our listeners, really break down and listen to what Mike's saying. Even if you're listening to this as an extreme leftist and you hate Mike and I, and you are just furious about everything that's going on because you're listening to the mainstream media, think about this. What good possibly can come from allowing non-Americans to vote
Right.
in our elections? Like, let's try to be impartial for just 30 seconds. What possible benefit to our country and our people and our grandkids and great grandkids for generations can having someone from Turkey, from China, from Ireland, from Mexico, doesn't matter the country, if they're coming to vote in our elections, what benefit does it have for us? I can't think of any, but
Right.
now I could give you a list of 100 immediate threats. And if
Right.
you want to make it real personal, I'm going to go to your bank and I'm going to withdraw money from your bank account. I'm not going to tell you when, I'm not going to tell you the amount. You're not going to have any control of it. Would you like that?
Right.
No. But we're giving money away through these politicians who are corrupt. They're getting fat and stealing, and they're letting tons of terrorists take our money, not just innocent like moms and children, and they need our help. No, the majority of the illegals, the majority of the people voting have malicious intent towards our nation and people, and you need to wake up and realize that. Which
Yeah.
brings us to another point. I don't know if you want to transition. What's going on right now in Minnesota? Because you guys have your hands full. You got one of the worst political candidates for president that had the worst vice president running mate, Tim Walz.
Right.
He's the governor of your state, and
Well,
that guy needs to be in prison, from what I know, in
yeah.
my personal opinion, based on the Constitution and laws. But what are you seeing right now in Minnesota with the chaos?
Right. What I see, everybody, is one of the biggest blessings to Minnesota in history ever. It's not even close, everybody. And here's what I can tell you. Minnesota has been blue since 1972. That's with the presidential election. We're the only state that didn't vote for Reagan, obviously. And that's why it's all the way back to 72. So what happens in Minnesota is you're going, what's the use? It'll be blue. What's the use of voting when it's always Democrat? And then you have people have lost hope and they're getting ready to leave Minnesota with all the highest corporate tax, highest income tax in the nation. It just goes on and on. So along comes this fraud. And what a blessing. Remember when I announced I was running for governor on December 11th, it wasn't even like a week later, it all gets exposed. The second biggest blessing is the whole country got to see Tim Walz on the national stage. We were seeing it for the last, since 2018, all the stuff he did to Minnesota that was the most horrific stuff, especially during the virus. You could get arrested. If you had more than 10 people in your house for Thanksgiving, your neighbors could turn you in. He gave all the illegals in Minnesota driver's license. Here, take a driver's license, take a driver's. You can vote, you can vote. And one of the things that's being done there, you talk about the illegals. You guys, in Minnesota, we have over, I think it's over 1,400 that are in prisons there. Now, when prisons, everybody, that's your felons, that's your murderers, rapists, pedophiles, whatever it is. So these illegals are in there. And now we pay $85,000 per illegal, which is $110 million we're paying in Minnesota to house these illegals. Now,
Hey,
let me
hey, can
tell
I
you
add
about,
something? I want our listeners to realize that the average American veteran gets about $45,000.
Yeah.
So the patriots are getting half as what the detriments to society are getting.
And these are, David, these are the worst, the worst. And I want to tell you, illegals, if you do it right, if you cooperate with ICE and cooperate with the federal government, and you give them out of our prisons and say, go back and do your time, get out of our country, you're gone. Now let me tell you about illegals. They're eventually, every one of them commits a crime, and it's usually a misdemeanor or a gross misdemeanor. Okay, and what I mean by that is usually a driving offense. Maybe they have to steal something, whatever it is. So now when they're in the jails, at the jail level, everybody, those people, like in Minnesota, are getting released, even though they have two crimes. They came in illegally and whatever they just committed. All you had to do was give them to ICE. Now, if you did that on both levels, you don't have to go door to door, David. These are cities that have cooperated, like Washington, D.C., Memphis, all these other cities that have cooperated instead of our crooked state, where these state officials in Minnesota have protected the illegals more than our own citizens. And it's disgusting. We have, but like I say, this fraud is such a blessing. Just like the 2020 election was one of the biggest blessings this country ever has seen in history. It opened people's eyes. All the last 5 years, all the corruption, the uniparty, the deep state, it became very real to everybody. And actually with citizens on both sides. All the nonsense that's been going on for 4 years under the Biden administration, that fake administration, with all the transgenders and all this craziness that was so evil is greedy. That's a big benefit we have. But it opened not only people's eyes on the right, but people on the center left. They're going, I just want to live a good life. What is this? I don't want this nonsense. You have people nationally like Bill Maher. He's went completely left to middle going, hey, this is nonsense. This is crazy. And arguing with Democrats over there going, you guys, there's no common sense to this fringe craziness, 3 to 5%. But that was evil, just going all in for the attack. So
And
right
Bill
now,
Maher, that man outwardly, he's hated God for years, mocked
yeah,
Christians and Christianity.
yeah,
And he's seeing him and Joe Rogan are two people I keep an eye on. I just
right,
hope they accept Christ because they have
yeah.
such an impact, but just on their soul alone, they need Christ.
Oh,
But
yeah.
Bill Maher went from the extreme left to what are you people doing?
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? And I've heard, I wanted to get on a show. We had requested that before I had announced, and so we're waiting to hear back. I would love to get on his show. I would love to witness to him about our Lord and Savior and Jesus Christ. And I'd like to get on his show. And so if you're anybody out there, Bill, if you're listening, hey, I'm right here. It ended up getting on Jimmy Kimmel those 2 times. I just want to be there and we talk about this nonsense going on. Everybody should want secure elections. And
Yeah, I just heard a statistic from Minnesota that one of the programs that was 90% corrupt was shut down or at least paused finally. But the people who actually need it or use it, so even if somebody was a liberal in America and a liar and milking the welfare system, they should be furious at all these fraudsters because they're stealing the money that they've been stealing. So the whole program is going to be shut down because we're giving more money to illegals than to Americans.
it's
And there's
it,
actually people who actually need it, which we're completely ignoring.
no, you're exactly right. In Minnesota, and I was just up in northern Minnesota, my governor stuff that I've been doing. I'm going to tell you guys, I'm taking a whole new direction on that too, by the way. I'll tell you in a few minutes. But I was up in northern Minnesota and they were talking about the autism program, or I think it was the autism program, but anyway, the money now that's been cut off, there were some people that really needed these things. And now they're sitting there on pause because of these fraudsters that took everything. And it's not just these 25 billion that they say they stole, most of them the Somalians, but they stole it from us as taxpayers. But no, they took it from people. What if there is a good need that needed those funds? They stole it from them. I want to talk about that for a second. When you talk about this fraud, let's go back with, because I'm running against Amy Klobuchar. I'm looking to go run to win the primary, go right against Amy. I'm playing proactive now. You guys will talk about what I'm going to do there in a minute to win Minnesota. But I want to talk about Amy Klobuchar. If you've seen a thing, David, out there, a headline, Mike Lindell and Amy Klobuchar come to a historical agreement. That would be kind of, you'd want to open up and see what that was, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Here it is. You open it up, you go, wow, in 2018 and 19, Amy Klobuchar was the biggest voice in this country to get rid of electronic voting machines, and she named them ES&S, Hart, Dominion. She named them. She didn't get sued, but her and I were in lockstep. They got to go, right? Mike Lindell and Amy were agreeable. She just had a way louder voice than I did, okay? But she had the big national voice. All the other Democrats got behind her. What happened since then, everybody? Here's Mike Lindell. I spent, I don't know, $70 million to save the country, to secure our elections, set up Cause of America, 300,000 people, the Election Crime Bureau, threw money wherever we could so we can finally get secure election. And what did Amy do? She ignored it. She did ignore the computer fraud and the election fraud. She went to the government and solicited, her being a United States Senator, solicited billions of dollars for Minnesota, okay, to bring into Minnesota for these programs, and it's gone by fraud. So this happened under Amy's watch. She's not a good steward of my money or anybody's money. It's disgusting. Now, let me tell you, when I'm governor, I say, Mike, what are you going to do about the fraud? Obviously, you dive in. That's you. Everyone's getting. I believe Waltz and the Attorney General Keith Ellison, Elon Omer. I believe that they'll be arrested by then. But if they're not, we're never letting up on that. We got to. These people that were involved, right from the top down, need to be put in prison and held accountable.
And I agree. And I don't
but
think, I want to add, I don't think America will be changing long term until that occurs. That's the
right.
proof in the pudding. When
Right.
people actually are held accountable for their crimes, given a fair trial, but with consequences, held for their crimes,
Yeah.
Democrats or Republicans, the Uniparty is going to control us.
Oh, no, you're exactly right. But specific to these programs, you guys, this goes back a couple of decades here, like in Minnesota. But with these programs, what you got to do then is say, okay, let's take each look at each one. I'm going to fire all the commissioners in Minnesota on the first day and start. You got to start from scratch there. But then the governor can appoint them. So now you take these platforms. Let's say it's, I don't know, stuff for the homeless, whatever it is. You look at each one of these welfare programs and you say, hey, is this a good in its own right? Let's say there was no fraud. Does it get a good return on the investment? Does it help who they say? Is there claims that help? How much of the dollar goes to the actual need? And David, I've been working for 17 years since I quit addiction. The inner city of Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rochester, Minnesota, these places to help the homeless, the people in addiction, and all the needs that were made. I poured millions of dollars into these welfare needs. So with the private sector, I believe with the private sector money helping the different needs and using that, which I did set up a prototype for, we tested it in Detroit, you saved about 40%. I was the government, I paid all the other expenses. You saved 40%. So can you imagine cleaning up these programs? And then you have use private sector money, and you end up with billions of dollars, not just the fraud money, billions of dollars based on what this opened up and what we learn now to stop, not only just stop this crazy toilet flood, this flood of money going down the drain. You're gaining all this money that you can use to what? Bring Minnesota income tax down. We're the highest in the nation, the highest corporate tax. What's happening in Minnesota, everybody, is companies are just going to pull out. They're going to pull out, and the Cargill's thinking of leaving because they can't sustain this anymore. The property taxes, all this stuff, healthcare. Minnesota leads the nation on all this. And I'll give you a thing, David, how bad it is. Our schools went up, our educations went up 29%. But in that same period, Minnesota, I would say we were somewhere like third to fifth in the nation. We went all the way down in 36th in the nation with our students, went that far down. And so we're looking at all that. People say, Mike, what would you do there? You know what I would do? I would look at what's working for it. This is what any entrepreneur does. I would look at other states and say, hey, is there anybody that made a huge gain? Oh, there's one. Mississippi went from like 39th to third in the nation. Well, I'm going to go down there and say, how did you do this? I want that exact program and bring it to Minnesota. You got any CEO, you look at all these segments and you say, hey, you look at similar people out there that are doing a similar task and say, wow, this is working. Let's use it.
Exactly.
And if it's bad, you don't do it. And which is why I'm very excited running for governor. David, I'll transition into that. Right now, for the last 2.5 months, everybody, I've learned different things that where I'm be a little bit of an anomaly here. The media in Minnesota, some of the worst in the nation, the Minneapolis Star and Tribune, they don't even attack me because it's like Mike Lindell doesn't exist right now in Minnesota because they don't want the Minnesota. They want to keep it under wraps. They want these establishment Republicans, and I'll give an example. I've been running around Minnesota doing these little governor debates to get the GOP endorsement. You get to talk for 4 or 5 minutes, and that's it. Or you get banned because I'm not going to go by I'm not going to honor the GOP endorsement. I'm going to win. The people. I'm number one in the polls with the people. And if this group at the GOP picks someone else, I'm going to do it best for Minnesota. I'm going to win. I'm going to win the primary and then beat Amy Klobuchar. Now here, David, what goes on there? What I've found here's like Lisa Dameth. She is Speaker of the House for Minnesota. She's been in there, you guys, for I don't know how long, but she gets on the stage. She says, over a year ago, I brought up this fraud thing that we could do to prevent the fraud, and the Democrats didn't listen. Amy, Lisa, I wouldn't brag about that because $25 billion happened under your watch. Just because you have a little R by your name, you didn't yell loud enough. You didn't tell us people that this was going on. You just said, okay, I hear it's going on, but where's the silence there? It was horrible that we didn't hear about it until
That's failed leadership. That
that's
is
failed
100%
leadership.
failed leadership. And why would
And,
anybody elect her again? That's
right. So that's exactly right. So here's what I'm doing, David, with the Republicans running for governor of Minnesota. I said a week ago, I called in all my team, my campaign team. I said, okay, you know what? We're going to follow our greatest presidents, what he did, Donald Trump. When I helped him, I went to over 150 of his rallies and I helped out in any way I could. That's the same thing. Remember, they weren't putting him on Fox News, you guys, when he was running. He didn't get on all these stations. They didn't want him on there. They didn't even come to some of the rallies. Fox News wasn't even at the rallies. They didn't want Donald Trump to win, this uniparty deep state. Anyone that thinks that Fox wanted him to win, they weren't at the rallies. What I'm trying to say is what I'm going to do now in Minnesota, I'm announcing I'm going to do over 75 rallies, or all these rallies across Minnesota over months and months here, and upwards of that. I'm going to try and hit every part of Minnesota. And when we do this, we did one the other day in Rochester. I was able to talk right to the people, and I talked for 3 hours. The crowd said, "Hey, tell us more," and they had questions. How are you going to do this, Mike? How are you going to do this? But one of the biggest things is I want to bring a message of hope to the state. So here's the way we can actually win. And to win, you got to have, for one thing, you have to have the name out there where we need to raise money for this, which by the way, everybody, you can go to mikelindellgov.com or mygovernor.com and help out there. But they also, to get this message of hope, the people in Minnesota, they need a message of that it can be won. And David, by doing all these rallies and bringing these people, there was 250,000 people that voted for Donald Trump that didn't bother in 2020, that didn't even bother to get out and vote in 2022. And why they didn't, because maybe they think midterms don't matter, and how are we going to do this? Could it be won? Yes, it's all different now. That we actually can win because, like I say, this fraud is a big thing. Everybody's upset about it. It's horrific what went on, and that continues. It needs to be stopped now. We need an outside. We need a businessman running Minnesota, not these politicians. I don't care on both sides that didn't do anything, and to be able to go up against Klobuchar with now this happening under her watch and going in there with the solutions. and then putting the word out to everyone in Minnesota that this is the most critical midterm election in the history of the United States, not just Minnesota. And another thing, everybody, where Minnesota is the Trojan horse for something really bad, and that's Sharia law. And now, because of this fraud, David, you're okay to say ban Sharia law. If I'd have said that 5 years ago, that's racist. It's racist. But now, because of this fraud, everybody can say it. Nobody wants it. It doesn't go with our Constitution. And so these are great things that are going on. And with us switching now to get the message of hope, I want everyone in Minnesota and the country to know you pour money into this race, and I'll tell you, I'm going to be working 18 hours a day to win this. This is the tip of the spear for the whole country. We have to win. We have to win across our country. We can't lose these midterms, and then everything we've come this far is in vain. And so there's a great path, great hope. If we didn't have these things in Minnesota, this blessing of this fraud, it would be very much an uphill battle because people, you've got these inner cities that were just taken over in Minneapolis with the Somalis. They say, Mike, why Minnesota? Why do you guys elect Elon Omar? What's wrong with you guys? Or why do you elect Keith Ellison? You guys, there's a lot of things going on. You have election fraud, but you also have these illegals let in and people brought in this to take over our elections. And remember Waltz in Minnesota, he just passed out the driver's license. There's places in Minnesota they can't even drive or they can't read the road signs because they can't speak English. You go downtown Minneapolis, everybody, and the voting machines, the ATMs are in Somalian. Let's think about this. And I just visited a real immigration place down in Florida about a month ago because I've been doing my due diligence and everything. Let's talk to the legals that come in here, from the immigrants, the legal immigrants coming in. And we talked to them. You know what? They waited in line for upwards of a year, but they love to come. They don't, whenever they're leaving, they come to the American dream. They want to come here, but the first thing they do is they learn English. This is what it was set up for. And could affects everything. Our school systems in Minnesota, I brought up earlier, these kids that you can't discipline anymore as a teacher. But when you have kids that can't speak English, the whole rest of the class suffers, much less they're bringing stuff in from the teachers union and stuff, and the board's telling you what you're going to show in your classroom, this horrific stuff. So you guys, this is an opportunity in history. I'm going to call these, I'll probably call them hope rallies. This is a message of hope to everyone that yes, it can be done. We can win. And boy, can you imagine if you win Minnesota, that means any state can fall. You can blow them over with a feather using these models to let the people know that this is critical. And then it says, Mike, the voting machines, they're still going to be here, whatever. But you know what? We've got a lot of things that are out there. You guys, it would take me a couple hours to tell you what we have out there, the safety things that we have that are in place now. So when they do this, like they just did in Texas, it's going to stand out like a sore thumb. And maybe that's what it'll take, David, if they steal some of these midterms where the whole public goes, open up those machines. You're going to open it up. And like you said, people need to be held accountable for these crimes. I don't care on what level it is. You got to put these people in prison, these politicians that are committing these crimes. Elon Omar goes from a negative 65,000 net worth to $36 million in 4 years. Where did it come from? You got one of her husbands or whatever, the husband deleting her websites and everything else that are gone. Do we have enough? I think the fraud and the crimes are so widespread, that at the DOJ to be able to investigate all these and get it to fruition, it's like monumental task. By the time we've got to get some of these people in prison, and then maybe you have a lot of whistleblowers coming out then too. That's when you start putting people in prison, they get a fair, hey, I'm going to go to prison too. And then the onion just keeps opening up and we're going to get to the bottom of everything.
Yeah, we definitely need accountability and just personal responsibility. I remember I grew up in Massachusetts. So the first 20 years of my life was in Massachusetts. And that's known historically as a more liberal state, not as liberal as Minnesota, but liberal. And I remember in kindergarten, there was two twin girls that didn't speak English. And I felt bad for them. They just sat there all day. We're in kindergarten and they're just sitting there, first grade, whatever it was, and they're just looking around. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I remember the teacher going to the parents and saying, hey, you need to pull your kids out of school, come back in a year, and they need to speak English. That's it. That was the end. Like, you're an American, you're using American resources, you're responsible to learn the language. It's
Right.
not our responsibility to stop and to teach the
Right.
language. And even the most liberal state, just, 40 years ago, had that
Enforce
common
that. Right.
sense.
And that's got to be, I really believe that's another thing that's going to have to be made a law, everybody. And you think of and then you know what? You could subsidize and we could train them English. How much money that would save if we're the ones paying to teach them English? That should be the number one class for them. And by doing that, by us as taxpayers covering that, okay, the legal immigrants, okay, the legal people coming in, you know what is saved because you know what path we're on. I just got done telling you in Minneapolis that the ATMs are in Somalian, Spanish, then English, and not, and then also think of our signs. Think of all our signs, advertisers. Think of road signs, so your traffic signs. All these things, if these guys can't read them, this is why you have truckers getting in accidents. You have the St. Cloud, Minnesota. They were telling me up there all the different accidents that happen because they can't read road signs and people coming down the wrong way, getting in all these things. The money to go into that, how many languages are you going to put up on a billboard to advertise product? Just, it would be a huge savings and easy problem to solve. Hey, you're coming in here, or like you said back then, the teacher said, hey, get out, go learn English. Okay. I
And
think
it wasn't
English,
mean. It was just, these are the facts. We love you. We
right,
want you
right.
here, but we
Yeah.
don't have the resources, nor should we, to teach your child English and take away from the other 30 students.
So there should be a separate, in my mind, if you need to, for us as taxpayers to subsidize that, the money saved, not in the classroom, those are separate. You come to the country, you have to learn this. You have to learn English, period. And if you don't know English, it should be a requirement to do many things. Because if you have to spend the money, just think of street signs alone and everywhere there's signs would be trillions of dollars to change it over, just letting everybody flood in all these illegals and all the different languages and stuff. And
And
just think,
and we're
yeah,
not being mean or harsh. Most countries do not support other countries' languages. And
right,
there's some countries like France. If you advertise in English, that's a crime. You'll not
right,
only be fined, but you can go to jail. And
right,
I'm not a huge France fan, but when they're
right,
actually doing something right over us, that's a big red flag,
right.
America. But
Well,
if you're in America, we speak American.
right.
And if you don't like that, go to the country you want to speak their language.
That's
Now,
right. If you love our country and you want to come here, and that'd be the first thing I would want to do if I came here anyway. And I talked to the legal ones down in Florida coming in. That's what the first thing they do. They want to be able to communicate and adapt to our culture, then love what we have over here, the American dream. On the other hand, you have the Somalians that have come in into Minnesota there, and not all. There's a few that I know personally that completely came here to stay here to be. They've learned English. They don't want anything to do with Sharia law, but there's few and far between. And these guys come in like Elon Omar. She said it straight out. Her country, her love is Somalia, not the United States. And here she's a sitting congressman or congresswoman. You can't make this stuff up.
it's the twilight zone. It's
Yeah.
just unbelievable
People,
that this
people
happened.
would, if you see this, if you went back 20, even 20 years and said, here's what you're going to see in the future, you would hear,
Yeah.
nobody, everyone would go, who would even think this up? Come on. This is
Yeah.
the most amazing Twilight Zone in history. And then to see it come to fruition, these things, like right now, let's go back to the Save America Act, everybody. They've interviewed my Lindell TV. They've interviewed people down in Washington D.C. and deep into D.C. with all the liberal and Democrats. They all want the Save America Act. This is, you think it's just the most, a couple things on there too. No men and women's sports, no transvestites, whatever transvestites here, but no men and women's sport. If you and I would have talked about this 20 years ago and said, okay, that's as far fetched as you could get, nobody would ever even think to bring that up. But now think of this: for voter ID, everybody in an election, when right now you have to show your ID for just about everything. To go in to pick up your prescriptions, to drive, to in New York to shovel snow, to get a job. Everything you do, you got to show your ID. To get a hotel room.
I
I
had to
mean,
go to
you
a national park this weekend.
everywhere. You
I
couldn't
had to
just sit
show,
there and go, I'm illegal. I don't have an ID. I want to come in. We're not even talking about illegals. We're talking about people that live here. Just think of the corruption there. So now that so you go in, you have no ID, and the way they jump ballots out, like in Michigan, you can grab 6 of them, go in 6 different times. In Minnesota, you guys, you can vouch for 8 people and say, yep, they all live here. No IDs, just say, I'll vouch for them. They all live down on, and they're neighbors of mine, whatever. Come on in, hit that button. Bing. It's, nobody can even make this up. And if those senators, if they don't vote the Save America Act in, I don't care if they're Democrat, Republican, it would be that person. How could they live with themselves watching our elections just go down the drain? And when all the people on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, all people, 80%, it's the most lopsided thing ever. This isn't bipartisan. This is a partisan. Everybody's together on this of the people, and it's disgusting that
yeah,
that they even has to argue this. They should all just say, "Hey, we're all for this."
the only people who are for this are people who are either insane, and that's the minority, or the people who are the problem, the corrupt treasonous.
Right. The ones that are against passing this, you are
Yeah, the
correct.
ones who are against having election security
There's
are the
they either
corrupt leaders
Yeah,
killing America.
there's a hidden agenda. You guys, this is what I've been up against for the past 5 years, is that we've been out there to secure these elections. And I'll be honest, I've been more pushback from uniparty Republicans. Sarah Sanders Huckabee, the governor of Arkansas. You got Brad Ratzenberg, the king of traitors over there in Georgia, the Secretary of State. When you block, and block secure elections, and you don't want to get to paper ballots hand counted or voter ID and all these different things, same day voting, you have a hidden agenda. It's either a personal hidden agenda or an evil hidden agenda that we don't, that's because we know it's all combined. I guess it all combines to that evil agenda, or a uniparty deep state hidden agenda. There's definitely a hidden agenda, because you would never, that's called a behavioral deviation. That behavioral deviation, explain yourself. Explain yourself why logically you want this. Why would you want the other one? Our kids in school, or no, when we talk about all the Islam coming here, if people really knew, these protesters that are out there for these things, if they really knew what that stands for and what they do to children and women and all these things, and it's unbelievable. I started, because I'm really getting to be knowledgeable of that. I want to get very knowledgeable of it, because when you go in, because one of the first things I want to do in Minnesota is ban Sharia law, bring back our state flag that they took away with no one and ask anyone, and basically made it look like Somalian flag. I'm going to take you realize this, David, you probably don't know this, or maybe I brought it up on your show before. Our Governor Walz, okay, he accepted a satanic statue. You guys can look this up on the internet. In the middle of our Capitol, that the only thing in there, there's this big satanic statue. And then you know what he said when people, just an outcry of, what are you doing? He says, we have to be fair. Fair to the devil? This is unreal. Then he got an award for it. So wherever that's at the Capitol, I don't care if it's in a closet, it's going to be gone. And they did some of this stuff. I think California back in the day, they'd have stuff over Christmas, and the Satanists would come in. Hey, we want this, and we want to put this over here to be fair. You don't have to be fair to the devil, everybody. This is unbelievable. That means that Waltz, what is he? A Satanist? I don't know what he is, but
Yeah. And for the people voting or supporting non-Americans voting in our elections, I say let's perform a test and I'll help fund it. Let's take a dozen of the people that support not checking IDs in America, send them to Somalia, and let them vote in the Somalian election. Because I can guarantee you, if they're not just kicked out of the country or in prison, they'll probably be put to death because other countries don't have this stupid toleration that we do in America under the auspice of freedom when it's really just corruption. So go to
Absolutely.
China and vote. Go to Iraq and vote. Go to Somalia and vote as a non-citizen, and let's see what happens. We'll probably never hear from you again.
That's right. That's right. You guys have been, so how much time we have left, David, for an hour by
So
chance?
we are coming right on the hour. So
Okay.
I'll stop talking.
I
What do
want to
you?
tell everybody, we're moving My Pillow factories. We had the last 4 weeks. We had a very woke company come in and would not renew our lease. And this was like, what? You know what? We reacted My Pillow, the most attacked company in history. We moved them and did what they say couldn't be done. Moved them to a brand new factory. But you guys can help us out and help yourself because here's what we have. Bed mattress toppers as low as $99.98, and we're going to give away with the 3-inch ones free pillows, 2 free pillows and pillowcases with your purchase with that big
Wow.
savings, and then mattresses, those big ticket items. We're going to get free shipping on your entire order, so we don't have to move them twice. The lowest price in history, free shipping right to your front door, 6-month money back guarantee, 10-year warranty, best sleep of your life, and we're also in the factory. If you go to mypillow.com/remarkable, you guys go there. All the stuff we have in the factory that we're leaving there, the old factory, the items we're closing out, our clothing line. You can find couch pillows, all these things, designer, I don't know, duvets, all these different things that we're closing out, which is over 100 products. You're going to get up to 80% off. That's lower than our employee discounts. So we don't have to move them into the new factory. You guys get the savings. Do all your shopping today with that promo code Remarkable. And you guys get free shipping right to your front door. You're helping us. You're helping yourself get the best price, helping my employees. By the way, in this move, we don't hire movers. My employees dig in. They've been very good as we've expanded over the years. They're the ones taking down the racking. It's a thing they said would take 3 to 4 months. We did it in 5 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks. So you guys, with the stuff that's up there, let's get them. Let's get it out there. Get the savings promo code Remarkable. And David, you got a number for them where they can call my operators, my employees are standing by too to take these specials.
Absolutely. It's 1-800-644-6612, and they will get a live human that will help them with their order and answer
And they
all the
speak
questions.
English.
Yes. Yes. So 1-800-644-6612. Use promo code Remarkable. And like I said, you'll get up to 80% off everything you order, plus free shipping, plus promotional gifts. And I will tell you firsthand, I have a My Pillow mattress topper, mattress, the pillows, the blankets. They're the best products I've ever used, and it is amazing addition to have you sleep even better. So, Mike, listen, thank you for your time today. But between your political governor race, between what's going on in America, what's going on at My Pillow, is there anything else we haven't covered, or a final thought you want to leave our listeners with today?
Yeah, you guys, Minnesota, I believe, is the tip of the spear. These midterms, like I said, the most important in history. I could use helpmygovernor.com. That's easy to remember, mygovernor.com. And everybody just keep the faith, keep going, keep the prayers going. We are always moving forward, sometimes slower than others, but we're not ever going backwards anymore like they do in our voting systems. Numbers don't go in reverse, and neither do we. Let's keep moving forward. God bless you all, and thanks, Dave, for having me on.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, go to mypillow.com, get yourself some amazing products, save money, sleep better, and support America. And for Mike, what's the best way they can donate to the campaign if they're able to help save America?
Yeah, the easiest one to remember is mygovernor.com or MikeLindellGov.com. They're both the same website. And nationally, whatever you can put in there is very limited. In Minnesota, we can only take micro donations for my campaign. So $4,000 per person is the max. But if you can give $5, $10, it adds up. We've already raised upwards of $1 million, which in a governor's race this far out, it would say, what? That's impossible. We know what it's going to take to win, to beat Amy Klobuchar on that machine. I've got to get around the media And I'm going to do it with these huge rallies that we need support on right now. We're starting them, by the way, April 8th. You're going to hear a lot about them, everybody.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, do what you can. Pray, shop, donate, and spread the message for these links in this email. I mean, for this episode and emails on your social media, and help spread the word. We love you guys. Thank you for being here today. We'll see you in the next episode. And Mike, thank you again for being here, my friend.
Thanks, David. God bless y'all.
Ciao.